Were you born in the West Kootenays?
I was born in Creston.
What year were you born
in? 1915.
When did you first go to work for the Forest Service?
Well, I guess about the first forestry building was in an old government building, which was the first jail in Creston, and it was just across the fence from our house. So Jim MacDonald, who had just passed away, we were at his funeral. He was 92. He was that was his first ranger job. He came in 1928. And he would, of course, I come out of high school in 1931, and you just couldn't buy a job. So I was over at the Forest Service even in my early teens, and I would go with him on his different timber sale inspections and one thing and another, and he put snowshoes on me and had me going, and it was supposed to be, I think, about 19 or something like that before you could go fight fire. So he'd have a small fire, and I would be pottering around over there, and he'd say, well, come on, you'll have to go firefighting. And I said, I can't, I'm only 15. He said, you're going out anyways. And this was the ranger, and of course the assistant rangers, they wouldn't take me. And so I periodically had on a fire, and then when I got 17 or 18, I was out pretty well all the time on fires. So that's how I got started. And then, of course, there was government had a program which they called, the position was I guess it was ranger assistant. Not assistant ranger, but ranger assistant, just a juvenile. So he told me to fill out the forms, and I said, well, read them over, and I said, well, I can't, because I said I'm only 19 and you have to be 21. To fill it out anyways and get somebody to sign it. So I got Mr. Spears. He had a store, and of course I was very good friends of one of his sons, and to sign it, and he said, well, you're not 21, are you? And he knew darn well I wasn't 21, and I never said a word, but he signed it, and away I went. So I put 2 years in as a ranger assistant. And then I put in 2 years as a dispatcher. And of course with this ranger assistant I got $45 a month for 6 months of the year, and then of course off. And of course all assistant rangers at that time, they were just on for fires and no timber management work. And then they were off in the winter time. So I was 2 years as a dispatcher, and then I came on as an assistant ranger. And in 42, I went in the Air Force, and I was away 3 years. And when I came back, I went right back to work with the Forest Service, and I worked steady ever since. For there, I went to the. Oh yes, I come back as an assistant ranger, and then I went to 46, fall of 46, I guess it was. I went to Nakusp as ranger, and then was in the second ranger school class. I went in and came back. Of course, I was only away 3 months at a time to the ranger school, and came back and finished off being ranger in the Nakusp. In 51, I went to Rupert as a supervisor. And while there, they made me, I don't think I got a great deal of difference in pay, but they made me a forest protection officer. And they just came in. And I'm not sure, but I think I was the first forest protection officer in the province. I might be arguing there, but I don't know. And 55, we came down here, and I put in 20 years as forest protection officer here. That was it. I retired in 1975. So that's just about all of my forest history. Yeah. And so we've just stayed here. Same house. I guess we'll be here a while longer.
That's a long career.
Yeah. I got credit for the time I was in the Air Force, but when I retired, I was 1 year, 4 months of making my 35 years, and I tried to get them to put in some of my assistant ranger time, and I went to Victoria, and one of the people there in personnel, or I guess maybe superannuation commission, said, "It has happened." Well, I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And "Do you mean that who I know?" And he said, "You're right on." So I wrote several letters, and they wouldn't recognize my time, but I had a little fracas with the DF, and I decided that was it. I had...
You were just finishing up saying that you didn't ever get your 35 years recognized, is that?
That's right, yeah. I was just a year, 4 months too short. But that was it. I just couldn't stay any longer, and I got my 60 years in. I guess had the best part of a year of health
leave
and everything. Yes. So yeah. Well, as I say, I started with Jim MacDonald, and I don't know when he went to Kamloops as supervisor, but all my junior days are all with Jim, and he was one of the best, I think, in the country. And we, at that time, we had, it was just straight forestry, old-time forestry. You had to, most of the firefighting was all done by hand because there was no mechanical equipment in those days, and very few roads. Most of your access was by trail, and the one good thing was that you had pack horses, and they would, like you have to, way back in the woods where you'd have to set up camp, and they would pack everything in. And as through the war, I don't know when they first started, but we started using aircraft more for spotting fires or following up from information from the lookouts. They would say, well, if you can, there was an awful storm in this basin, but I can't see in there, and so they would take this, and we had, well, I think about 1948, Don Thompson came in, and we had our patrol plane. We had Beavers for quite a long time. And we went from there to, I'm not just quite sure when we started on air tankers, but they were wasn't much of an air tanker when they first started out. They would maybe pack 100, 150 gallons, and that's about all. And that was before we had retardant, and they used to have them set up so that they would come down and not land on the water, but just skim it and snorkel the water into the tank, and off they go and drop water. And about that time, in came the helicopters, and we got so that we were able to put them in. We had a program of building heliports in every district, and in places where we thought were much needed. So that all developed around about the same time, and of course the helicopters at the beginning, they were, you were lucky to pack 75 or 100 pounds. And I guess everything progressed. The ground access got much better because our logging had increased considerable, and we got lots of logging roads, and the horse just about went out of the picture at that time. And and the helicopters, of course, they improved, and they got their buckets, and they would drop water, or when retardant came in, drop the retardant. And of course the tankers, they went from nothing to TBMs. They were a torpedo bomber attached to the Navy. And they would pack about 400, 450, something like that. And now, of course, they've improved. The aircraft got bigger, and now, gee, we were out to do at the tanker base for a retiree, and gosh, there were 3 of these big tankers in there. They sure looked lovely. Of course, they came after my time, much later. But I think they pack about 1,200 gallons. And then, of course, they do have not necessarily the Forest Service. I think they contract the DC-6s, but they have a few of those tanked up and scattered around the world. But it sure improved, because right at the beginning, if a fire got going, why, all you did was to follow it. You know, it was too big to extinguish. And of course, you didn't have any help. It was just manpower. And nowadays, with these tankers, boy, they get a report. And of course, this I don't know the new system of
the locator system.
The locator system. I don't know anything about that, but apparently it's wonderful. It just jots every strike down, and they just watch these, and they've cut away down on the lookout numbers, and they send the tankers in, and of course, when they find them, they send the tankers in, and boy, they don't necessarily snuff them, but they hold them until the crews get in, either with big mechanical equipment, bulldozers and all this stuff, and water tanks and truck tanks. Yeah, so it's I think the percentage of the burnt area has dropped way down, percentage-wise, way down. There would be the odd drastic year like we had, I can't remember, in the last 10 years over there at the Invermere Canal Flats. That was a drastic fire season over there, and of course
You worked as a dispatcher for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the 20s?
No,
you were in your 20s then?
Yeah, that'd be in the tail end of the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the dispatcher's job?
Well, he was the ranger's clerk, you might say, and he looked after the office, and but it was then when I started, it was just strictly forest protection, and you would line up fire crews and get fires, shoot them out, and of course, if you had much of a fire season, you were busy as heck on reports, and the assistant rangers, they had to make out their reports, but you would be working with them, because you would have an awful lot of information.
Would you receive reports of fires?
Oh, yes. They well, they would have have our phone numbers and everything, and they would phone in.
Did you have fire towers then down in Creston? Did you
yes.
have Thompson and McGregor?
Yes, well, McGregor was later, but Thompson, it was there before I even joined.
Did they have a telephone line from there to the ranger station?
Well, into the telephone office, and then, but gosh, I can remember putting up the telephone line every year, and we call it a store string. It was a little, very fine copper wire, and it was insulated as best it could be, but it was mostly insulated. And you just strung that in the trees. No insulators or anything. You just had a crotch stick, and you up there, and you right up your trail and right up to the lookout. And we had a great big heavy mine phone, certainly weatherproof, but it must have weighed 80 or 90 pounds, and that was the big load for the horse, the center pack. And it was quite a chore getting it up. And then we just telephone company connected us in, and that was it.
And you did that every spring?
Every spring and every fall we had to take it down, and we had little spools about that big around, and we had a manufactured crank box that you put it in, and one guy's taking it off the trees, and the other guy, he's winding it up. Yeah, that went on for, God, I don't know. And I did it for 5 or 6 years anyways. I guess maybe when the war come along, maybe that kind of finished it. I don't know.
Were they hard to maintain? Did they, during the year, did you have to keep going?
Yes, you had to keep in, and you wouldn't have any idea where it was. And we had little test sets. Well, I can show you. You can turn that off. You had no idea where the break was. And there you are there, and here's your ring here.
Your ring? What do you... Oh, the crank.
Yeah, there was a little hand crank generator, I guess, or whatever you call it.
So this is there's a leather case, and it's about a foot tall and 4 by 6 inches. Inside you put the phone, and then what's this? This is the...
Well, yeah, you have to, the line, this has to hook onto the line, and then you have a ground.
So there are 4 knobs across the top.
Yeah, I don't know what they all are for.
Then you would hook one clip onto
the line,
yeah,
and one to the ground.
And then you would crank your crank and ring up, and if somebody answered, you would know that part of the line was working.
Yeah, well, that's what we'd have to do, you see. We would have to go out, and we'd start right at the bottom, and we would, we'd get the office and ask them give them the office number, and then we just had to carry on. We had no idea where the break was, and nobody did. We just didn't hear from the lookout man, and away we go with this, and we'd go so far, and hook on, and eventually we don't get central, and so then we got to start hunting in the bush, because we tried to, the easiest part of it was if we stayed near the trail and just hung it up. But every once in a while we would make a cross cut, a switchback or something, And then we have to, if it's there, then we have to go down, and all you do is just wind it together. That's all there is. And the only thing is, you're standing on the ground, and you're there, and you're winding it on, and you're on a family line down below. There's a number of phones on it. Of course, Jesus, old Central, their power ringer, they ring it. Gee, oh God, it just.
Would it give you a shock?
Oh, it sure would, boy. You just go around with the ringer.
So you would be looking for a break, but the wire was insulated, so it might be broken inside the
Well,
insulation.
it could have been, yeah, but usually it was broke right off. You know, like a branch of a tree, or a tree fell down and broke it. And of course, we had telephone. We went from telephone to radio. And of course, gee, that was a big change for us. And we had our portable sets, and of course, it's like everything else of the Forest Service or Forest Protection. Everything improved. Yep.
That's a fairly heavy
Oh,
looking handset. That phone is
yeah, and that
pretty strong.
God, it must weigh 15 pounds anyways. 12, 15
So you'd
pounds.
pack that up.
Oh, sure.
And how often would this happen? Half a dozen times every year? Or?
Oh, at least.
Uh,
Yeah, at least. But I think I had 3 of those, but gee, I don't know what happened. Oh, I think I've got one over at Christina Lake, and I was going to set this up between us and our neighbors. But I don't have any store string wire. Of course, you could use pretty near anything because you're not that far apart. You got a good voice, well, that's just as good.
Why did you say that Jim MacDonald was one of the best in the country? What was it about him that you...
Well, at least that was in the estimation of the people that worked with him, you know. I shouldn't say the best in the country, but he was a real good ranger and a good person to work with. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, he had no help. The early rangers, they had no help as soon as the protection people left. That was it. And of course, they didn't help him on his management work anyways. They were just hired for protection. But then later, they progressed, and they were kept on the year round, and of course they were on management and protection.
Was that a change that took place after the war?
I would say about that time, although there was a few assistant rangers during the war that they started working full time.
There were several sawmills around Creston at that time. Winlaw had a sawmill, and the Wiggins had one.
Yeah. Well, of course, Winlaw, he had the first mill at Windle, and south of Creston, all of that country was all timber, and they called it the Alexander Limit. And Winlaw, I don't know how many years he was on it, but it was all done with horses, and he would haul them down oh, 2/3 of the way to Port Hill, and make big log piles right on the edge. And he would wait till the high water, and in they went, and down. No, I thought I was in Creston. Down. Well, after they reclaimed, the Goat River started up at Kitchener in the mountains, come down past Creston, and then it went out and on the flats, and it joined the Kootenays. I don't know what they named the mouth, and it went in there. Well, before it went into the Kootenays, there was a slough that joined the Goat River, and that went right into the Winlaw's mill. And of course, he used to dump the things in high water and get them into the goat and steer them into the slough and down into the mill.
Was the Alexander limit his own private land, or was
no?
That was a crown.
No, it was private land, but it wasn't his.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who it belonged to. Oh, in the early days, there was I guess it was a big logging outfit came in from Burton, the Arrow Lakes, and they didn't last very long. They did a little logging there, but never. I remember I was on a fire there. We burnt quite a bit of it. I was there for days and days, and that was before I joined the Forest Service, so it would be in the early 30s.
From all your experience, you must have begun to develop an understanding of how to fight forest fires from that early time.
Oh yeah, there was certain things, you had to get there, and many of the fires I was on, and after I joined the Forest Service, of course, I was stuck with fighting the small fires, and say a half a dozen crew. We'd pack, sometimes it would be pretty near a day to get in packing, pack all our grub. But, and of course, in the beginning I had no communication. And after you got into radio, then you could holler for help and supplies and everything.
What kind of trouble could you run into that you would need help before the radio?
Well, maybe the fire was too big for you and it's getting away from you, or you'd need some food, so you'd have to send one of your men out to get food. It was pretty grim. At least you knew nothing better, or no other program, so you didn't know, and it was all right. Oh yeah, a lot of fires that never got a lot.
Would you pick and choose which fires you attempted to put out?
Oh yes, the location would have an awful lot. I mean, there's a lot of fires way back in the 40 miles up a creek somewhere, right at the headwaters. You wouldn't even bother. You knew it was there. And a lot of fires you would do. But anything that was close at hand, or And the population, you had to, because people are watching all of this.
Were you worried about the safety of people?
Well, if they were close to the timberland, but most of the towns were by themselves, but they could see the fires, because God, here in a valley, and if it's on the face, why, there's the fire, so they can watch it.
If it was a young stand of timber rather than timber ready for harvesting, would you be less likely to try to put it out?
Well, could be, although it'd be the location again, whether it was close to timber stand.
You were in the second class at Ranger School.
Right.
Was it the case when you went that there were a mixture of younger and older forest rangers there? Some men with a great deal of experience and others who were brand new?
Yeah, there would be more of the older people than the younger people, because they didn't have the experience, and it all depended on what position they were in. They wouldn't send a dispatcher. They would want to have an older assistant ranger, or they started out, I imagine, with rangers. Mm-hmm. And we were pretty well in our class, pretty well all rangers. And the same with the first class, and I don't know where it went from there.
What time of year did you go down?
I think I started in around the 1st of January the first time.
So this was something that was done in the off season? You'd have your normal summer work?
And then we had to be back for the fire season. We had 3 months. And it was only 6 months, and then later on they went to 9 months. But then you see that fall we put in 3 months, and then we were through. I think we went down in September, October, half of September or something, half of October and half of November. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they would, I guess, later on catch up with the rangers, and then they would rely more on assistant rangers and some of the lower help.
When did fire season start? And what were the first things that you did to prepare for fire season?
Well, fire season started 1st of May and used to go to the end of September. And then later on they went to the end of October. But our big chore was in the beginning of the season to make sure that all the equipment was in shape and all there, and we would get out and work on a lot of the trails to make sure that they were open so that we could, not only for our access, but also for horse access getting in. So they had to be fairly good.
Where were the trails located?
Oh, they were mostly located up the creeks. You might get the odd one on a particular mountain or something, but the creeks were the value. You know, that's where where your timber mostly were. There would be on mountains too, but more than likely you'd have to go up the particular creek to get there.
In the 30s, when you were working for the Forest Service, were most of those trails established already, or were you building new trails and expanding it?
There'd be an awful lot already established, but we would increase a little all the time, and you know, so that with the years going by, well, you would get more mileage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
And what kind of equipment were you getting ready? You had shovels, Pulaskis?
Oh yes, you had to make sure. Well, what happened with the fire season, of course, your tools would come in, and especially axes, they would have to be, gosh, they would, Jim MacDonald would have fellows charged to the fires, and they would be there for a month, 6 weeks, just doing nothing but, and it was, we had no electrical equipment for grinding. It was just hand grind, one guy turning the grinder and the other one holding the axe. So that the equipment, you had to go through and make sure. One of the other big things was all the cooking equipment. You see, we had all the cooking equipment, and they had to be cleaned, and you had to check. You didn't have to do that in the spring, but you had to just check and make sure that no fiddling had gone on during the winter. And the tools, the shovels and that, all they were done was just cleaned up, and Pulaskis had to be, the only way we could sharpen them was take them to the blacksmith. Then that's the only way. Now, of course, they grinders, they have big hand grinders, and they just, but of course they were all Mattocks then. There was no Pulaskis. I can remember when the Pulaskis come into being.
Oh, when was that?
I just can't tell you exactly. I would say maybe sometime in the 30s. Yeah.
Was that invented? Do you know who came up with the idea?
Well, I think the fellow's name was Pulaski. I'm not sure, but.
From BC, or is that?
No, I think it's worldwide somewhere.
Down in Creston, you'd have been right next to the U.S.
That's right.
Was there much interchange with firefighting across the border?
Oh, they were real good to us. We were the junior people, and of course, they had CCCs, but no, I can't remember what that means. They had young fellows in this. God, they had them scattered all over the country, and they would be working trails and everything, improvements. And I can remember one time Corn Creek started up the head of Corn Creek, and we were, it was 32 or something like that, 34. 32, they cut out our protection money altogether. And I think it was 34, they allowed you to fight the fire if you could fight it for $25. So we went up, and it was right in the head of Corn Creek. And Jim sent 6 of us up there, and we had to go up out of Boundary Creek. We had to go into the States first, and the road went to Clockman Mine away up on top. Of course, it was back and forth in Canada and the States. And we had to crawl up and right over the top to get to the fire. Well, we got to the top, and the whole top of the Corn Creek was on fire. So we just never even looked at it. Nothing we could do. 6 men. We come back, and I guess they, as it came down, I guess they fought it. But anyways, it come right down, right out into the face. Corn Creek is maybe 5 or 6 miles from the border, and it headed down. And of course, there were a lot of farmers over there, by a lot, maybe 15 or 20 of them. And it burnt right down. And of course, the fire crew pretty well just above the community people, or the farmers, and heading for United States. God, I don't know, they shoved in 150 people or something and cut a line right down. That was the end of it there, but that thing kept going till fall, until the snow came.
These Americans came up into Canada?
Yeah.
Did they bring their own people to supervise and direct it, or
yes.
were you in?
Yeah, no, they did everything. We didn't, heck, we were so busy we couldn't even look at them. And they were good. We used to, once a year, they would come up when we'd have a meeting, and they were real good.
What was the purpose of the meeting?
Oh, just forest protection.
Talking about how you were...
Fires and one thing another, and what their organization was. But they had a much bigger organization than ours. And you take like Bonner's Ferry, it was the ranger headquarters. Yeah, they were good. We had a number of lookouts, like throughout the province, above the border. There was now like Thompson, of course, he could look right down into the States, and the one at Salon, there were a number. And we would report any fires to them, whether they had them or not. We reported, and they did the same for us, because they had lookouts along the border too. So it was very cooperative. I don't know how it is now. I would say, even with management, I think they're about 20 years ahead of us, and everything they do. Forest protection and management, although right now we have a wonderful protection business with air tankers and all of that. I don't know just how. Of course, Missoula, Montana, they got a forest protection school there. And maybe once a year we would, forest protection, would go down and have a meeting with them.
Is there one fire that sticks out in your mind from your career as being the most difficult to put out?
Oh God, we had so many. Now, I can remember that Corn Creek one. Of course, I wasn't old enough to be on it, but I was on Nick's Island, which now is a reclaimed area. We had our hay cutting permits over there, and we had to haul it all in by horses. And I was with my dad cutting hay, and I watched this doggone fire, especially at night. It was fantastic to me, but it didn't mean that much to me. I'd only be maybe 12 or 15 or something. But I'm just trying to think. There's so many fires that
Well, when you came to Nelson to be the protection officer, would you be in direct charge of certain fires, or did you go out into the field to take charge of a fire on occasion?
Oh, no. I was the head of the organization, and supervisors would be brought here. We would have 3 or 4 supervisors with their districts, and they would sort of take care of the firefighting in their districts. And if it was real bad in one particular district, everybody would be moved in. And of course it got to the point where with aircraft we could shuttle around the whole province, and they started moving people from forest districts into forest districts. And of course extra tankers and everything, they would come too. And so it I don't know now. You don't hear very much, other than the last was this thing at Infirmier, of any terrible fire seasons. No, this year here, you see, they've had nothing, although it could happen now, like in last year, on the 15th of July, it got terrifically hot. Now, I can't remember what the fire season was like, but they had a lot of moisture, just about like what we hear now. The only thing is, all this grass growth and everything all over the country, everything is green, and you get the hot weather, and boy, it dries off, and that is tinder dried. It's just like kindling. And guy with a cigarette could throw it in there, and geez, even alongside the road, and that thing could, boom, be away in nothing flat.
You must remember some pretty dry years.
Oh, yes. And of course, there's so much of this tinder grass and everything, why, even in the trees too. Christ, it's into dry brush, and the next thing you've got a big fire. But even there, with the quick access and the air tankers, boy, they're right on. And a few globs of that mud, and she's, as I say, they I don't think they ever put any of them out, but they just hold them so that they can control them.
Well, the technology is quite impressive now, but the effort of the individual firefighters in the 30s must have also been quite impressive.
Oh, you take in the dirty 30s, this is the only thing they had, and the wage was 2 bits an hour. And boy, they were out there. In fact, I'm quite sure that the odd one got set just so that they could get some money. But they were good firefighters, boy. They liked firefighting, and they were good workers. Whereas now, I don't know what they do.
Did you have portable pumps in the 30s? Hoses and pumps?
Oh yes, yes. When I went, they had pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was before I got on with the Forest Service. I was usually a pump operator. So when I came in, I knew the pumps. Yes, they had pumps, and then came the back pumps. With it in. To begin with, of course, there was none of those. Yes, there's a lot of a change in everything. The firefighters and the programs and the equipment and communication. There's been terrific changes, and I don't know, it looks good.
Were you ever in a dangerous situation personally in firefighting, where you felt?
Yeah, one of the worst fires we had was when I was a supervisor and forest protection officer in Prince Rupert. We had a hell of a fire at Burns Lake. And we had the camp, I guess off the highway. It was 2 or 3 miles in there. And so I was in there with some fellas, and God, the fire took off in the ground. And so we had to get out of there because it was heading towards us. And we had a cat crew in behind, so they wanted to know this little small, well, it wasn't a big crew they had with me, and they wanted to know how to get out. And I said, you look up, you see the sun. I said, you just head straight for the sun. And they started packing their equipment. I said, Jesus, just heave it. They said, you haven't got time to pack equipment. God, it was it's a wonder that we didn't get caught. And we come out directly on the fire camp. And of course the road went into the fire camp. I guess it was the end of the road. And here the whole camp was on fire. So we just headed down the road, and it was fine. So then it kind of dampened down, and we were the forest district forester. He was there, Percy Young. And so I said, well, Jesus, we got to do something. And I said, it burned so hard. I said, I think we can just walk right through the old burn. I said, we've got to find out where the hell this cat crew is from. Where? So in we went. And of course we're hiking. And any of the roads were, it was so hot it just scorched everything. And it was, most of it was out. And God, here we're walking along this road, and Jesus, here's this big Indian buck, dead. He'd fired, caught him. So we didn't dare touch him. So we went on a little ways, and did some hollering and got here. Here was the crew. So we said, okay, and the fire had gone another 10 miles, pretty near along horizontal to the highway. And I said to them, I said, now, you're here, you've got access. I said, you can go right down through where the fire is. I said, there's no heat at all. And this is only about 2 or 3 hours in the evening. So then, of course, we got the police and everything and got the Indian lad out. And on that same fire, of course, we had to hit it again, and more equipment and cats, and we were able to finally, we're getting near fall, I guess, and things were in our favor. But this was the first fire that we lost a cat on. And of course it was a private cat, and it was quite a thing getting this paid for. But finally, eventually the government through the Forest Service paid for the cat.
Was the man who was killed part of the fire crew?
Yes, yes.
Was that the only time you've ever had a firefighter killed on a crew?
Well, I can remember before I even joined over in Midge Creek, there was a fire there, and a fellow was killed on it. In a lot of cases there, I think he must have got lost, or he didn't stay with his crew or something. But we were lucky that we didn't have more. But in most cases, it's not the fire's fault. Well, it would be in the beginning, but it'd be an accident, something, a tree fall over on somebody, or some equipment, they're killed with equipment or something.
So this has been part of what you've experienced, having this happen during the time you were protection officer?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. Well, that's who you asked me about. That's one of the worst fires that. Yeah.
What do you think the worst one was for you in this area?
Oh, I don't know. We had one in Castlegar that was on top of the mountain, but it didn't come down. I'm sure the Duke of War people set it on fire down near the bottom on their side, and it went up. And we had tankers working, and I think, I don't know whether they were on that fire. It was too big. Usually tankers used on smaller fires or on some hot spots or something that would give them a little bit of trouble. But anyways, we had, at that same time, the tankers weren't working on the Castlegar fire, but they were down in the boundary country, and they were hauling out of the dam there, the power dam, and we lost a tanker on there. He was one of the best pilots, and I don't know why he dove right in. I don't know whether he had a heart attack or what the hell. But we've had a few aircraft accidents. With all those hours, you're bound to. And it's not the best of flying. You're in and out of side valleys, and last year we had the bird dog and bird dog pilot. From here, and they were flying for, I think they were flying for Alberta up north there. And they went in. Real sad.
Did you get to know the pilots a bit?
Oh yes, but not that much, because we had our crews, you see. We had our tanker crews, and the bird dog officer, he was flying all the time.
Did they always use Castlegar as the base?
Well, we have a base in Cranbrook too, and then we got so that we, because it's a long ways from Cranbrook to Golden, so we had I don't know whether they still have them or not, and we had a minor base, an assistant base at Golden, and another one at Revelstoke, because it's quite a ways there. And for a while we put in a mixing machine at Grand Forks. I don't know why, because we're so doggone close. They're in Nothing Flat there over Grand Forks from Castlegar. But it was just to, and they had a little bit of a similar base at Nakusp, because you take, if your fires are that distance, it helps an awful lot if you've got a base that they can go into, even if it's just for refill.
Were these dry land strips, or?
Yeah, they're all dry land. There's no water tankers. Although on the coast there's that big outfit. What are the Mars? Is that the machines? But they can pick up on, oh God, I don't know how much water. I guess they've lost, they bought 4, and I don't know whether they've still got 2. I think they've lost at least 2. It's a timber organization, a private outfit that has that.
Well, firefighting must take a great deal of practical judgment that you develop over the years.
Oh yes, yes. You can fly over it now, and this is what I used to do. Usually, forest protection officer, I'd go and pick up the Ranger, and we'd go and look at it.
By helicopter?
Either helicopter or aircraft, and I'll say, well, I think you'd be better off if you got in behind there and try and hit the ridge and come down the ridge and hold it there. But the Rangers that were with us and had 15 years experience. Yeah, Wally Johnson, yeah, he trapped up the Goat River from Kitchener. I think his partner, I think he died. But, oh yeah, Wally Johnson, he must be 90.
93.
93. Buster Ross, I seen him, he was at Jim MacDonald's funeral. Yeah. He gave a little, what do you call it when you
Eulogy?
Eulogy. Jesus, you see, I'm stuck on words. I'm stuck on people's names. Gotta hope that thing isn't on.
I just turned it back on now.
Oh. Yeah, he gave a eulogy and a few things at Jim. He was always pulling something on you. You know, little jokes and...
Did he ever pull some tricks on you?
Oh, sure. Turn it off, would you?
Oh, sure, but did he also play tricks when you were out working together?
Well, it all depends the seriousness of the whole situation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it didn't matter, why, liable to be something. Gosh, I used to, and I was the guy, of course I was only a dispatcher or the ranger assistant. I'd have to pack all the stuff into the lookout and take his grub up, and I would get one of the horses from Creston, and I'd have to walk that damn horse out there, I think it's 6 miles to Canyon, and then walk him up the hill. He showed me how to throw a diamond hitch, and I could do that and put it on. And these horses, the milk horses, they were just small horses, but boy, they were tough, you know, because they delivered the milk and they never delivered on a walk. They were always on a trot. So I had one and went up and come down, and he was kind of stopping, and anything that looked like brush or anything, he'd kind of stop or something. Gee whiz. Finally, I gave him a kick in the rump. Jesus, he stood on his head, and God, I wonder he didn't break my leg. God, he hit me right in the thigh here. So, boy, I behaved with him after that. But then I had to walk all the way into town with this game leg. Well, it'd be 4 miles up the hill, and 4 miles down, that's 8. And, about 4 or 5 miles in, it'd be 16 or 18 miles. But then we rigged up outfits for the back of our trucks, and we'd haul horses in the back. In fact, I think Jim bought a horse, and then we used it. Of course, he would charge for it. And the first time in, he wasn't getting in there, and I thought he was going right over the cab. But after that, he just step in just like home.
There's a boat up behind the museum called the Amabilis that's being that they're hoping to restore, and it belonged to the Forest Service.
Amabilis.
The Amabilis.
Where was it at? Caslow or something?
Caslow and on the lake. Did you ever use boats to get around to points on the lake?
No, I never did. The ranger, of course, we... now, if you're down at the waterfront, you'll see the city has a... I don't know what they use it for, but it was the hull of the Harrop ferry, the one before this one they pulled out. And I don't know, that must have been 1940s, and we made it into a landing barge with its own power, and we used to take cats and things across the other, because Caslo, you see, come right down to, on both sides of the lake, down to, I guess, Midge Creek, between Midge Creek and Cultus, and across, I guess it took in, I don't know how far it came down, but anyways, to get across the other side, they had to, and the same up in the Lardo, to get across the other side, you had to take them across. But it was that was a nice landing barge. Gosh, I guess they had it for 20 years or more, and I don't know what the city is doing with it. Yeah, and they, of course, most of the ranger districts had, in the beginning, they had boats because they didn't have access.
Did you have one at Nakusp?
Oh, sure. I had a little speedboat there that was built here in Nelson. Oh, God, it was a beautiful little boat. Go like a son of a gun. And, of course, I had to use it across, all on the west side of the lake. See, Arrowhead came down so far, just below Halcyon, and across the other side, and we went up above, there's hot springs there, north of Nakusp. And there was an old hotel there, this old fella.
St. Leon's?
St. Leon. And what is St. Leon? Is that life ever after, or what, or something? Life forever, or something? Is that what it means? Anyways, down in Florida there was a St. Leon. So this old prospector, that's what he named it, and he built a hotel there. Oh, a big building, I think it was about 3 stories and everything, and he was going to bring the water down and have a pool. But I don't know, it's a couple of miles, a half miles or something up there. By the time the water got down, it was cool. So, anyways, I guess he died there. And then this other American, he was involved with the war, and he used to be traveling back and forth the trail from the eastern United States. God, he liked it so much he bought it. Gates of St. Leon's, they call him. Ed Gates. A beautiful looking wife. He had 2 sons, and she wouldn't stay there, so she left him. And he married he didn't marry her in the beginning. I guess he married her at the end. Old Harridge, the member of Parliament, federal member of Parliament, one of his daughters. And so he's dead, and now she has died too.
So you'd move about on this boat, the speedboat, you could get around?
Oh yeah, I had to even to St. Leon, across to Pingston and Fostal, and eventually, of course, there was a ferry at Arrow Park. We could get up Arrow Park Creek and in there, and eventually with the extension of logging, they come in around the back into Fostal. So I could get in there, and then of course, with the tree farm going in, they had all roads all over the country. But before it was the boat and hiking.
When you went to Prince Rupert, the tree farm, had the tree farm been established in the Arrow Lakes?
Forest T6, I don't think so. I don't think so.
So it was, yeah, that was later. That would have changed things a great deal in Nakusp.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So was there a sawmill in Nakusp when you were there?
Oh yes, old Sid Leary, he had a sawmill there for years. He was a member of Parliament and Department of, didn't call it Department of Highways, down the Public Works or something, yeah. And yeah, he had a mill there. He logged there for years and years. And of course a lot of their logging was done, or to get it to the water, of course that's, there was no roads or anything, so you had to either skid it down into the lake, or else a lot of them on the little bigger sails, they put in these, what do you call them?
Chutes?
Chutes, out of logs. Down they'd go. He had a few of those along the lake. Yeah. Oh, it is the whole industry, timber industry is certainly changed. It doesn't matter whether it's protection management or what it is. It's sure changed an awful lot. What I used to hate about it quite a bit was politics getting mixed into it.
What do you mean?
Politics.
In what way?
Oh well, they'd even tell you what to do, and of course they doled out the money and controlled you that way too. Oh yes, and there's an awful lot of ministers in the government that don't even know their department whatsoever.
But how would you have run up against that in your job? What did it mean for you?
Oh well, I'd want to try and progress, and I couldn't on account of there were times, depending on what government was in, there were times that nobody bothered you, and I used to move the money around just as I wanted, and what I thought was the best. But then another organization would come along, and you were told what to do. And if you didn't do that, you couldn't move the money around.
What sorts of things were you trying to accomplish?
Oh, projects, finished projects, building bridges or building the odd garage or something. But in the end, before, we used to do all the work ourselves, and but then later on everything had to be contract and closely regulated with regard to financing. Yeah. Well, there's two fellas that were at Castlegar, Glen Helen and Cal Belmont as assistant. And all they were doing was just getting work done, but they were kicking around. And of course now you can't do that on account of everything is computerized, and holy Jesus. So they were both let go even after they put in 20-25 years of real good work. And of course all they were doing is what they'd learned from us before.
You mean that they were performing, but they weren't accounting the right way for what they were doing?
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, hell. We'd get Bob Broder with his cat in there and get going on a project, and God, it only needed a few more days to finish, and ordinarily you're not supposed to do that, but we would kick around a little bit and get it done, and otherwise it'd cost you twice as much to open it up again.
This would be a road that you wanted to...
Sure.
For protection or for timber access?
No, protection.
Protection.
Yeah.
Did you take to building roads specifically for protection?
Yeah. Yeah. Those particular roads, yeah. Or we would have some management roads in there, and then we wanted to just go a little farther or something into a good area, and that would be a project for us.
Had you surveyed the district and identified places that you wanted to build roads for protection? Or was it...
we didn't survey very much. It was just for a visual survey, and of course with Rotter we pretty well kept him busy, and he was the best road builder in the country. God,
he had a sawmill in Salmo?
Well, that was his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Bob was his son. I don't think he hardly ever worked for him, although he built the odd road, I imagine. Yeah, we were very good friends of theirs. We're over to see them quite often. They moved to Trail, sold their lovely place at Erie Creek. They didn't sell it. They gave it to their two daughters. We were with them on the 1st of July. I don't know why the parade was okay, but the rest wasn't.
So you were building roads, and did you let the trails lapse a bit then?
Yes. Oh, yes. Because a lot of them would take the place, trails. Yeah, it would be, the trails would, I guess there's a few that would be in impossible locations, road location.
I met him in Caslow.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, you won't meet him anymore, will you?
No, that's true.
Yeah, well, poor old Frank, his crews just didn't like him at all. Because he was, I guess you would say he was dictatorial. And he had the saying and whatever, and you take a lot of his assistants are damn good assistants and are able to do a lot of good work.
You mean because of the training they had with him?
Well, not necessarily, but with former people.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, I don't know. I pretty near forgot that fire up north, and that was one of the worst. But gee, I don't know. My memory is slipping.
There were some. I remember hearing there was one fire in Hamel Creek that even threatened the Lavina lookout. Is that right? Do you recall that?
Oh, yeah, it was. I don't know where it started. Quite a ways up. I think it started on the north side, and I guess some afterwards sloughed down into the Hamel Creek a little bit. There was a fire up Hamel Creek. Did that come down? I can't remember whether that came down or whether there was another small fire that. Well, anyways, I guess they dumped some mud on the lookout building.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they broke some glasses or things. God, that was Jack Hogan. I think he was a bird dog officer, and of course then bird dog officer was in charge of the whole organization out there. And I can't remember what the hell he said. Boy, it was. Of course, he's always ready with remarks. God, the other night he was out to this do for God. Here's a guy, I just can't think of his name now. Bill Woodward. Is being superannuated.
Oh, right.
And he had something to say about the outhouse. I don't know, there was something. When we dropped there, they dropped the mud or something, and he had something real smart, and I can't remember what that was all about. The outhouse.
Would you recalling his comment on having bombed the Lardo, the Lavina lookout?
Yeah. Oh, what a character that is.
Jack Hogan.
Yeah, I don't know why he's still alive, because he was. They were having quite a party at the tanker base, and he was staying in one of the West Kootenay houses at South Locan, and he came home, and I don't know whether his wife was mad at him or what, but he turned around and was going back to the party, and God, I guess it was a Forest Service car and everything. This side of the bridge there at Castlegar, he went over, and God, he landed up on the railroad track down below, and Jesus, just nothing left of the car. And he was battered up quite bad, but you wouldn't think it now. I said, well, And that was quite a few years ago, and I said, yeah, you might have come out of this all right now, but I said, by Jesus, you just wait till you get older. The old arthritis will set in on some of those breaks, and that's what they're doing. But he had a watch. I don't know whether some of the pilots gave him a watch or something, but anyways, he couldn't find it. He lost it, so we all went together and got him another watch.
And he was a Forest Service or personnel, or
he was. Oh yes, he'd been assistant ranger, and then he was the bird dog officer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, he used to get a lot of work out of the pilots and everybody.